What's up, fight fans? Boxing Source here checking in. And it's been a good little minute here since we caught up. Of course, we didn't have the podcast on Sunday. Had a number of things that I had to take care of here, outside of, covering the sport of boxing. That's why, I wasn't able to make it to the event in Atlantic City. Also had an event that was pretty much in my area there at Maryland Live. There, shout out to No Excuse Promotions. They had their fight card that was on ProBox TV. I wasn't quite able to make that, so had to take care of business in Florida and have a couple of other events there that I was part of. So once I was able to get that done, get that squared away, now I'm back, pretty much settled in, just catching up, and wanted to talk about that unification bout between Boots Ennis and Eimantas Stanionis, and why, I pretty much said from, the get-go, leading into that bout, that it was just a bad style matchup for Eimantas Stanionis, and it turned out to be that very early in the fight. Now let's start off with the tail of the tape that, I kind of went through. And it was, for one, that Boots Ennis was there around 5'10", had a longer reach, and had, was taller as well. And, for some, pretty much saying that he was getting down to 147 or to be able to make 147. And one of the things that was pointed out during the fight that was very key is, with it being a unification bout, rehydration clause really wasn't in effect. So he didn't necessarily have to be at 157 pounds there at the day of the fight. He could rehydrate to pretty much whatever he wanted. So when you're seeing how they looked, oh man, it looked like, a middleweight against a welterweight. But that's one thing. The other thing was, look, like I said, with it being a bad style matchup, you had, of course, there with Eimantas Stanionis. His key is the jab, and his key is to be able to be consistent with the jab and be able to throw it early and throw it often. And you saw there in the first round, you didn't really see that much there of the jab from Eimantas Stanionis, which allowed Boots Ennis, whether he was going to be starting at orthodox or being at southpaw, that, hey, he could use his offense, utilize his offense, because all you're seeing Stanionis do pretty much in the first round was just had the high guard up. So that just gave Boots Ennis the time to, okay, where you at? Oh, you're here? You're here? Okay, I'll go upstairs. I'll go downstairs. And then if I get a little more comfortable, I'll throw more punches. And that's how he started off. And like I was talking about, when you have the longer reach, you're taller, you're faster, you can, as some may say, get away with more. And Boots Ennis was able to get away with a number of things early in the fight. But by doing that, he was able to become more comfortable, because he could have his lead hand out and he could switch off and move off to the side, whether he's going in at an orthodox stance or switching to a southpaw stance. He could, throw the right jab, he could paw the jab, he could go down to the body, stab to the body, he could go upstairs, he could go to 1-2, 1-2-3, as long as he knew where his range was. And that is what we saw there early in this fight within those first couple of rounds. You didn't really see Eimantas Stanionis throw the jab on a more active basis, so to speak, till about round 3. And by that time, Boots Ennis was already comfortable in what he was doing on offense. Now, with that being said, you had Stanionis that had a couple of instances where he was able to land some hooks, whether it was left hooks or right hooks, while he was within range, that, whether it be a counter or something, like I said, with him being able to be within range, Boots was able to take those shots. But at the same time, when you're able to take some of those shots, you're able to throw some of your own. And so at times, Boots, even though he had the good start, he was like, you know what? Let me see here if I could go ahead and get a couple of, punches in to see where his power is at this point. So he did do that. There were some times that he did get caught. Some other times he was able to roll with the punch or block the punch or switch off and then counter. And that made his offense be more versatile in those, as I say, those middle rounds, like round 4 or maybe even round 5 or something like that, where you kind of seen him throw more uppercuts, throw more punches to the body, throw 3 or 4, 5 punch combinations. And when you seen that, it was like, man, if you don't have Stanionis throwing like more than 2 punches at a time, you would have to have him to the point where he would have to land a good counter or land a big shot in order to get back in the fight. And you really didn't see that there from Eimantas Stanionis, in the 4th round and even in the 5th round, where he did land a good number of punches at the beginning of that round. But at the close of the round, you seen Boots just turn it up on offense, and it almost seemed like all of the momentum that Stanionis could have had there in the first fifth round was pretty much taken away from him. Then in the sixth round, it was pretty much all but over, so to speak. You've seen the blood coming from the nose of Eimantas Stanionis. You've seen bout Ennis just being able to unload, whether he was free-flowing with his punches or just with more emphasis on them, as long as they stayed within a comfortable range that prevented Stanionis from properly retaliating. Because if you've seen there in those last couple of rounds, there were some instances where Stanionis would throw some power shots or power punches and be out of range. So whether he threw it, whether it's a right hand or left hand, it would be completely, swinging at air. Like there was one point where he completely missed bout Ennis, and bout Ennis was looking at the crowd or looking left, looking at the crowd like, oh, where'd that punch go? But that was the thing about it. As long as bout Ennis knew where he was at all positions of the ring, as long as he kept a good distance away from Stanionis, Stanionis wouldn't be able to be as successful with his offense as maybe he planned to be going into the fight. So there in round 6, you just see more with Boots just being more comfortable in throwing combinations, being in within range. He could, throw, as I said, as a southpaw and an orthodox fighter as Boots is, he could lead with the right hand and come around the guard with the left. So he was just doing that multiple times over the course of the fight, and particularly there in that 6th round. And then you had the point where he landed a 2-punch combination to the body that backed Stanionis up, and that just opened up more offense for Boots in order for him to score a knockdown there in that round. And there was another instance where you had Stanionis that was off balance, and Boots tried to get to him to see if he could, try to score another knockdown. But it was like right before the end of the round, and then the bell came in. And then after that, the corner for Eimantas Stanionis stopped the fight. So you have bout Ennis as the WBA and IBF and Ring Magazine welterweight champion. Still undefeated, giving Stanionis his first loss. And you pretty much could say, yes, he is the top-rated welterweight there. Of course, you do have other world champions, WBC champion there in Mario Barrios, WBO champion Brian Norman Jr. But here with bout Ennis, given his performance here against Eimantas Stanionis, you got to put him at number 1. Now, as far as like what could be there in the future for him, we have to see. Okay, they were talking about it after the fight. They're not locked in as far as like, okay, are we going to be doing something where we're staying at 147 or we're going to be going to 154? Pretty much depends on what's next for him. And what's next could really depend on what the other world champions do. Now, it did talk with the trainer of Mario Barrios, there, Coach Bob Santos, who said that his next bout is planned to be in the summer around July. I don't think you're going to have that quick turnaround for bout Ennis to have a fight in July against Mario Barrios. So that leaves Brian Norman Jr., the WBO champion. Now, WBO champion there, Brian Norman Jr., did have his fight against Eric Cuevas, did score a knockout victory against Eric Cuevas. He's talking about he would be open to it. His dad there, Brian Norman Sr., has been open to it. But after that fight against Eric Cuevas, right, you did have a top-rated contender there in Jen Sasaki that, stepped to Brian Norman Jr. said, hey, man, I'm here as a contender, man, and, I'm over here in Japan, and, we got some money over there. What's up? So you got a little bit of a choice there for Brian Norman Jr. Unification or potentially a good money fight there against Shin Sasaki in Japan. So that's the current situation there. But, just giving that whole analysis about bout Ennis and his win over Eimantas Stanionis, I just felt like it was a bad side matchup all around. It was just more about Stanionis being there flat-footed, high guard, is really there, right there for someone like bout Ennis who moves around, very much. It's a quick twitch fighter, in and out as far as like where he could get to within range and out of range, stepping in, stepping out. So that just made it like all wrong for Eimantas Stanionis. Now we just got to see what's next year for bout Ennis as the unified welterweight champion. Hopefully that was a good enough analysis for y'all. If it was, hit the like button. Also, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We're going to get right back into it with the midweek report coming up tomorrow, scheduled for 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to check that out. And with that being said, I'll catch y'all later.